Hello, fabulous friends, fans, and superstars. Welcome to Synchronicity Web TV. I am your host, Nadiya Shah, and this is your moment of synchronicity. Well, I'm so excited to celebrate with you today, once again, Mark McGowan. Now, Mark is somebody you've seen on my channel before. He's created lots of videos, and I just think he is so brilliant. I love the way he brings together mediumship and astrology and spirituality, but he also has this commitment to doing things in a way that's very much at the forefront of what it is that mediums are doing now, but it's like he's trying to advance the whole field. And I just love that visionary sense that he has. And it is Mark that is coming to Synchronicity University once again as part of the November 2024 speaker series. We've got this wonderful Scorpion magical theme playing out, and his course and his class rather is called How to Be a Medium. So perfect for Mark and perfect for Scorpio season as well. You've got a little time left to choose your tuition rate, as low as just $5 a class, to learn from Mark, the reality TV star, who I just think is so brilliant, Mark McGowan. Mark, thank you for being here. Welcome.
Thank you, Nadiya, so much for being here with me and inviting me, and this opportunity to teach once again at Synchronicity University.
It's exciting for sure. And, you know, I love the theme of this particular speaker series, of course, is the spooky theme, right? The haunting, the Scorpio, all that kind of stuff. And you were just such a perfect fit. And, you know, it's so interesting because in this speaker series, everyone there has taught before at Synchronicity University. So, of course, because you've contributed so much to the channel and because of your commitment to mediumship, you were like just the perfect fit.
Well, thank you for, first of all. Second of all, it's my favorite time of year.
Me too. Yeah.
I can't wait to do something for Halloween and the Scorpio season.
Yeah.
And there was so much. Like, I really don't know if I've ever heard a spirit tell me that the veil, per se, gets thinner. For those of you out there that are wondering what I'm talking about, in some cultures around the world, they believe that around the Halloween season, that the communication between this world and the next gets a little bit easier because the veil, so to speak, has become thinner. But I tell you, there's just some kind of feeling. It just feels different. Things look different for me. And so there's got to be something to that. I love all cultures, how they will celebrate it. And so one of the things that I want to first mention about my class is I like to try to get rid of any of the kind of unattractive, scary things about mediumship. There shouldn't be anything that anyone should be afraid of when they are doing some sort of spirit communication, because the communication between the spirit realm and this world is a natural phenomenon. It's not unnatural. In other words, there's so many of you that are watching this interview right now that have said, oh, I'm going to check out what Mark is saying with Nadiya because I dreamt of my grandmother. Or when I was 3 years old, I felt someone in her presence just standing at my bedside, and it felt good. It felt like love to me. And I've always wondered, was that really them? And so I wanted a class for those types of people who have had those experiences, that you don't have to come in really super developed in mediumship. If you just have an interest and you have a little bit of a hesitancy because you've heard these stories about, you know, scary or bad things that can happen, should happen, will happen, and I think mostly because of Hollywood, that I want to kind of get rid of some of those myths and misconceptions and kind of shed a light on how beautiful and sacred spirit communication is. But with that said, everybody truly can communicate, and everybody has had an opportunity to receive communication from the spirit world. And a lot of my class is going to be about that, as well as improving a little bit of that sort of, we'll say, a spirit Wi-Fi connection, as well as something for those that are a little bit further down the path, I would say, So if you have no experience but you're interested, if you have some experience and are interested, this class is for both of those types of demographics.
So the class is called How to Be a Medium. So let me ask you, how does one become a medium?
Well,
How would you answer that? Yeah.
they wake up one day and say, yes. Well, so medium and spirit communication, there's a little bit of a different nuance to it. I would say that spirit communication is available to everybody in all types of different ways. Even in modern day, it's not just our dreams that your spirit loved ones might be reaching out to you from maybe your favorite song on the radio or your favorite television show. You might see a character on your favorite movie, TV show that resembles or has the same personality or just reminds you of that spirit loved one. You might have synchronicities in your everyday life. Mediumship, in my opinion, when you have, let's say, somebody's spirit loved one that's a stranger from you, it's not someone that you know in the spirit realm, it would be somebody's friend of a friend or whatever, and those spirit loved ones are coming. I think that is a really good indication that you might have something a little bit stronger than the average spirit communication. That's where I kind of put in the label of medium. It's when you are the intermediary between the spirit realm and whoever is on the earth, but it's not your loved ones. So if it was somebody getting a spirit for Nadiya, that would be mediumship. If it's just communication between you and your loved ones, that's really what we want to call spirit communication, not necessarily mediumship.
Are there certain astrological signatures that can speak to somebody having that ability to be a medium?
Yes, so a few things that jump out. One, Mercury being your morning star. When Mercury is somebody's morning star, they take on the mythology of Apollo. When Mercury is the evening star, they're taking on that Hermes mythology. So the Apollo mythology is one of the communication between the two worlds because Apollo rules all of the light of the universe, rules prophecy, and the oracles of Delphi, of course, channeled Apollo. So spirit communication can be seen. One of the obvious ones is having that Mercury as your morning star in your birth chart. Another big one that jumps out to me is Venus in the 12th house. I know it sounds kind of strange, but Venus being in the 12th house, Venus is a planet that wants to be seen and heard, right? Celebrities and comedians have a nice Mercury and Venus conjunction. The 12th house rules the collective unconscious, which is spirit communication. Venus is taking that invisible and making it visible. So it's almost like I've heard other people refer to it as the magician's position. So that really jumps out at me. One of the other things from Hellenistic astrology, when your moon is in the 3rd house, it is best when your rising sign has that Cancer and you have moon in the 3rd house, because in Hellenistic astrology, the 3rd house was the house of the goddess. So that would rule the not so popular religion and spiritual paths, so to speak. The popular religions would be 9th house. So moon in the 3rd house, you'd be a channeler. It's the high priestess position. So really, those are the big three. Of course, anywhere where Jupiter is, if it's in an interesting location, or the sun in the 9th, Jupiter in the 9th, maybe it's a big possibility. The sun conjunct the North Node is a big one. There's quite a few. Some asteroids that I use, like Iris, and some other, I use Quetzalcoatl. There's quite a few there that can show me that I have a medium, a little bit more than just spirit communication going on here in a person's birth chart.
So just to let people know, how can they see? It's very easy to see whether your Mercury is a morning star or evening star.
So if you have your birth chart and you're looking at it, when Mercury is your morning star, it's going to be before that sun. So in other words, if you have a sun in, let's say, 29 degrees of Cancer and your Mercury is at 5 degrees Cancer, that means your Mercury is moving above the horizon before you're born, or whatever it is. It's your morning star. If it's after, let's say it's a sign after or after that sun, then it's your evening star.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to be able to, when you understand the chart, you can identify it, because on the chart, that AC/DC line is the surface of the Earth. And so if you're going all the way to the DC, that's the west. And so you can see if where Mercury is in relation to the sun, if it's just before, just after. That's a wonderful way to understand it. And then that can tell you something about your mediumship abilities. But it sounds like there's a few different things that people can look at.
Yeah, and it's a little bit different in our era than it was 100 years ago or 200 years ago. So I keep that in mind as well. We have modern mediums today with different needs and wants than they did 100 to 200 years ago. So you'll have quite a few come along your way that have a lot of mediumship indicators in their chart, but they may want to be accountants. And so I tell them, quit the accounting job and become a medium. No, I don't do that. But what I do is, of course, we know about transits and progressions and stuff like this. But it really does boil down to what the person wants. I mean, your original question is, how does one know? Well, it's hard to explain how somebody loves something, right? You just kind of know it in your bones. For me, ever since I was 3 years old, I've had this communication. It's as real as air and oxygen for me. When people say they have some doubts, or and they ask me, do you doubt if there's a life after this? There is a zero doubt for me. It's not 99.9. It's 100% no doubt for me that life continues. Nobody wakes up every day and says, I hope I have oxygen and I hope I can breathe. You just have this knowing, and it's there. That is what mediumship in the spirit realm is for me. So when people love, acting, or people love music, and you can give logical reasons, but at the end of the day, they just do. And so I feel like those that have a stronger ability to communicate with the unseen world, they just know. They just say, hey, I can't tell you, I can't describe it to you, and I can do it, and this is what I am.
So given that you are a medium, see, the thing is, I'll tell you, I'm just going to say why I'm asking this question, first of all, because I talk to my mom every day, right? Like, my mom is like my best friend. I know lots of people feel that way, but I really feel like no matter where I go in the world, it's like I have somebody with me. I have somebody to share with, and it ends up being really nice. Like, I've never felt like the absence of a partner or a travel buddy or whatever, because I know I have her to share with. But of course, the natural way of things is normally your parents pass away before you do. And I have said to my mom already, like, I have told her that when she passes away, I am fully making an AI version of her. I'm going to take all the videos I have, I'm going to take all the photos I have, I'm going to put it into a machine so that I can put on some VR goggles and feel like I'm talking to her, just for my own psychological functioning. Now, she thought that was creepy. She was like, no, you can feel me. I'm going to be right there and stuff like that, right? Do you think that, I mean, is it for you as a medium, is it like, I'm sure you've had people, and you do have people like in your family that you love, and of course people do pass away. Do you feel like that's not a big deal because of your understanding of mediumship and your awareness of spirit, or how do you understand that? Do you think an AI version of someone who's passed away that you wish was still here, is that kind of creepy? What do you think? So that's two questions I asked you. Yeah.
Well, it's not. I'll answer the latter. It's not creepy, but I feel like, well, I know that you don't have to be a medium to have what your mom is describing to be possible. So that's kind of answering both questions at the same time. I'm very proud of myself for doing that. I have seen family members, clients, coworkers from different places have that experience that your mom is talking about, that their loved one, it's just as if they're there. I've had so many times where I've read someone and I've said, this particular spirit that's coming through, I just know you have had this connection with them after their passing, and it's stronger than anything you can describe, and they're not mediums. So I know that spirit communication between you and loved ones can be as strong as somebody who does it professionally for strangers, absolutely, no doubt. So we want to say, celebrate their life when they move into the next phase of living, and like almost cheer them on. Like, yes, you get to be a part of the next phase of living, and I'm supporting you. I'm your biggest fan, and they're your biggest fan. And so we need that time for them to go away and then to come back and go away and reunite, as opposed to kind of relying on them with artificial intelligence, because then we lose that sacredness. The other thing that really is driving me to teach, especially for Synchronicity University, is that I feel at times people want to utilize spirit communication for their own personal gain. It's not like a genie in a bottle, and it's not like a vending machine where we can get it kind of how we want. Mediumship and spirit communication works the way it works, and we just kind of have to be grateful for that. And it's sacred, and if we can give it that, then it becomes even more beautiful as time progresses.
It's tough to consider and contemplate life without certain people that you really love or that you get used to, having as part of your life every day. I think that's the part of the fear. But I understand what you're saying. You're not the first person to say it like that. It's more about the connection, not so much about just the act of seeing them or hearing them.
Absolutely.
But doesn't it? Yeah, go ahead.
The advantage of knowing astrology is that we know there's this thing called the collective unconscious. That the reason that astrology works, if you want to call it genetic memory, as some call it, or you want to call it archetypes, or you want to call it mythology, whatever word, it's all the same stuff. It's all in the collective unconscious, and we're all connected to these things. So we really, as astrologers, have sort of say an advantage or a leg up, because we understand that almost better sometimes than psychologists. I used to work in clinical psych. Then if you believe that, then you should believe that what you just said is true. The connection will always, 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 always be there. We know this from astrology and the collective unconscious, that we always are going to be connected, but maybe not the way we want it to be, where we're seeing them visually every single day, or not being able to Skype or whatever, just in a totally different way.
It's intriguing to think about, right? Because I think it's incredible that we as a collective manifested the internet. Like, I think that this speaks volumes to how we understand our connection to each other, and the fact that our spirit / minds are like limitless and can reach across oceans. And it's this powerful symbol for spiritual connection, right? Like this endless sense of, we always said there was a web that connects all of us. It is a literal sense of a web with the internet that connects us. But then there's also this mystery. Like, we know it's like electricity and there's cables and things, but there's still this strong element of mystery, and it relies on satellites in the sky and all of that. And so that itself is such a powerful symbol to consider. And so then wouldn't the next leap be, well, then maybe AI has a spirit to it? Like, I don't know if you ever watched, I know we're going off in an AI direction here, but did you ever see that movie Her with Joaquin Phoenix, right? And in this movie, he falls in love with this basically an AI not a physically generated or visually generated, but it's basically an audio like he's talking to. And then he gets very upset when he finds out that she's simultaneously with like 800 different people and stuff. And like people have commented, like, what does it matter? What does it matter how many people she's with? Like she's giving him something that he needs in that moment. And so I don't know. I kind of have thought about this deeply. Like I've thought, okay, does it really matter? Like if maybe it's a spirit that shows up in terms of the computer itself, right? Or the technology itself, it brings forward something that person needs. It's filling a certain need that people have. Like what's the big deal? But then I understand that some people think it's like fake. But then couldn't the same be said for like spirit connection? Like, have you thought about this? What do you think about this?
Yeah, I would say that in the moment, obviously it works, you know. In fact, Deepak Chopra just made a bunch of AI software for suicidal hotlines. So now there's people who feel very uncomfortable talking to someone, a human, if they feel like they want to take their own life. And they've done studies that they feel more comfortable talking to a bot. I can understand this. My expertise, I worked in clinical psych in the psych ward in crisis. So I have an expertise in crisis intervention, South Node in the 8th house, no big surprise. So I would say the answer is yes, as all mystics from different cultures would say. The answer is yes. In the moment, because of his level of awareness, walking Phoenix, in that moment, yes, it was exactly what he needed. But then, perhaps because of that connection, his level of awareness changed. And maybe he started to tap into his subconscious, into his personal unconscious, and realized, wait a minute, if you're talking to 800, this is no longer sacred. His level of awareness was totally different before. Now he's totally changed because of this connection, his level of awareness. So he's expanded, right? His level, now he's like, I need something much more sacred in his opinion. So yes and yes. So when they say, well, why does it matter? They are correct in that moment, but it is up to him. And his level of awareness did change. So he has the right to say, no, I want something sacred that is not AI with 800, whatever the number was. So really the answer is yes. It really always depends on the level of awareness that the two people are at.
Wow, that's very powerful to consider, because isn't it the case that whatever our level of awareness, it speaks to the types of connections we want with other people and whom it is that we want in our life, whom it is that we think is not to be in our lives. Yeah, it does come down to like where we are in terms of our own consciousness and what our spirit might need, what our soul might need in a given moment. It can determine the people that we end up interacting with regularly or choose to have around us.
You know, I'll use another pop culture example. There was an episode of X-Files. Mulder dies. He goes to the spirit realm where Native Americans helped him, and they did a ritual for the holy people to come. In other cultures, we call these spirit guides or spirit healers. When he awakes, he asks the medicine man, I had this dream. Was it a dream or did I really die? And the medicine man says, yes. So it's both. You know, Carl Jung used to say we're always dreaming. It's just that right now, when I'm talking to Nadiya, the sensory physical world is just so overwhelming that I don't know I'm dreaming. So fake, real, yes, no, it's all the same. It always goes back to that level of awareness that you're at.
Wow. So that would also speak to our connection to spirits, right? To mediumship. Like a lot depends on your level of awareness, how willing you are to see them.
Yes, your willingness, I think, is everything. We used to think that maybe genetics played a role. Maybe it was something like this. But I've taught so many mediums that have a ton of talent, ton of ability. It's in their birth chart all over the place. And where they are at in their life, some of them don't value it. They have different priorities, different needs, different wants. And then others, you look at their birth chart, they may not have a lot there mystically. No ESP, intuitive indicators, not a whole lot of relatives genetically that you thought, well, maybe it's genetic, but their openness, and they really sort of keep sacred this inspiring and healing element to spirit communication. Sometimes all of a sudden it takes off. So it's, something that is still a mystery, but I do believe we all have access to that invisible world, because I really do think that as much as I'm talking to you here, we are on the internet and we have, all these physical things. We are all truly in the spirit realm. It's just our level of awareness at this moment is a little bit more into this physical world than it is there.
Yeah, at this moment, we're more connected to the physical world. But yeah, as you mentioned with Carl Jung, you sleep, right? That really is sort of saying, okay, physical world is one thing. Now let's go travel somewhere else. It's called the dream time, or maybe it's called the unconscious or the collective unconscious. But it's time to sort of allow the body to be one thing and then allow the spirit to be another.
Absolutely. I almost feel like that's Uranus too. Uranus saying, this is this is that. Let's separate the two right now, here and now.
Wow. And we get the experience of that when we're in the dream world, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I also mention dreams in my class because I feel like certain people will often tell me, I have a lot of dreams, and I've had a lot of dreams of this particular spirit loved one. And then you'll have other people, they'll feel very intuitive, very connected, and no dreams. So I go over a little bit of this, why that is, why that's not, and all that. So I will give a little bit of a teaser, though. You can improve on the dream thing. If for those of you watching that don't think that you're a dreamer, you definitely can improve upon that. So I really look forward to this class.
Yeah. Do you document your dreams? Would you recommend that? I imagine so. Yeah.
I stopped for a while, and now I'm back doing it. And I actually offer dream readings too, where if somebody wants me, I will take some time out, usually a week to a month, and I'll dream whatever is going on in their life. I'll send them an image of it and a little bit of an explanation.
So you're talking, I'm like, I wonder if I documented any dream as of late that I'm willing to share.
Everybody should definitely document your dream. For one thing, they'll help you what's going on now.
Yeah.
No matter if you don't believe you have an intuitive bone in your body, you still could get some sort of premonition in the dream world. And that is an easy opportunity for spirit communication. So there's just so many advantages of it. And but like a lot of you out there, there has been years in the past where I stopped because we get busy and all those sorts of things. But yes, I do document it now, and I'm if I miss a couple, I regret it. But if I do miss a dream and I don't document it, within a few hours of my waking state, something will jar me back and go, okay, I gotta remember this.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I know Jung used to do this thing like a creative remembrance. I forget, he had a word for it, but basically he invited people to remember their dreams, but also not tell themselves, oh, I don't remember this, I don't remember that. Like just go with it. Imagine that you're still in the dream and what's happening and what do you notice. And I also had received the advice before, like you want to try to create connections between your awake world and your dream world. So if you dream about having an apple, you should probably go when you wake up and have an apple, as a way of sort of starting to create that relationship between, whether you want to call it the spirit part of you, the unconscious part of you, and your more conscious part. Interestingly, like years ago, I remember doing a a workshop on dreaming, and we had to do this meditation together. And so this was like I was in university, right? And it was just amazing because this teacher was there, this workshop leader, and he said, okay, now you go in, you do the breath. Now imagine yourself, you're at I forget what he called it, but basically like you're in front of a door, right? You go into the woods, into the forest, and then you see that there's something there and there's a door on it. So I kind of imagined like, like a hobbit, like the way a hobbit's home looks. But he didn't say that like, oh, it looks like this. But I remember seeing that and he said, okay, then there's a door there. Now go open the door. And so I remember going to open the door. And then the next thing I know, he's saying, okay, now we're waking up. When we get to 1, we wake up. And then literally like 7 seconds, 7, 6, 5, 4, I literally came back into consciousness with us waking up. And I always thought that was so fascinating because I thought to myself, whatever it was that I saw there, it was like my conscious mind didn't need to know. But I remember waking up, opening my eyes, and he's looking at me really weird. So I thought, okay, he knows that I fell asleep. So I thought that was really wild.
That's very interesting. One, if he truly did stop when you open the door and all that, you are correct. That if he did it on purpose, then he does know that your unconscious is holding memory, even if it's in that half second. So then it would manifest through your unconscious, through the subconscious into the conscious eventually. So if he did it on purpose, unless it was an accident and he has some missed notes. Secondly, what I want to say too is Carl Jung's mom was trained in mediumship a lot, very, very, very similar to the way that I was informally trained. She was a trance medium in the style that almost resembles very closely my style. So Carl Jung is, for those of you that don't know, is probably one of the most brilliant humans we've ever had, because he has this rare ability to have this right brain openness that's infinite. And he's also left brain, which is I'm very jealous of. Knew like a million languages, all that jazz, and could take such complex things and make it sound so simple. Whereas people in this time called him magical because I feel like they were just jealous of him. But he understood these things so well. And the other thing that I want to say is going through this whole topic of Scorpio season, Halloween, mediumship, I don't believe he went insane or went down the road of ruining his mental health with his ideologies and his philosophies and his navigation through dreams or synchronicity. I feel that because his financial life got difficult, that's where the depression and stress came from. So for anyone out there thinking that mediumship can somehow worsen your mental health or there's anything scary, there's nothing further from the truth at all. For Carl Jung, investigating the spirit guides, the collective unconscious, the dream world, he really got to see and quantify dreams because his clients started dreaming years ahead of time, World War II. So it was years ahead that they were all seeing these matching dreams. And he's like, oh my gosh. I mean, he knew about the collective unconscious through other cultures and his intellect, but his patients were really the confirming thing that he needed, that all of a sudden they're waking up and they're saying, I dreamt last night of the Holocaust, of these horrible things going on, of Nazi Germany, way ahead. So he was like, man, this collective unconscious stuff is real. The other thing that I want to point out, there was a recent movie of Star Wars where it's called The Last Jedi, and Yoda has a lightning bolt. That's actually a nod to Carl Jung. When Carl Jung passed away, at that exact moment, lightning bolt hit his favorite tree. And you were talking about this whole idea of connecting your dream world to the real world and all that. That's synchronicity at its finest. His favorite tree, the moment he passes, the lightning bolt hits. It was kind of his way of saying, I was right. I was right, believe me. Even though
Yeah.
it sounds too magical for all of us, the more you can buy in, the more rich your life will be.
Wow. Yeah, I know that you can still go to like Carl Jung's house and just outside Zurich, and they do a summer program there, like a summer school 1 week, where you're just immersed in, different Jungians who come from around the world to teach this whole immersive experience there for those who feel called to it. It looks very intriguing. It's sort of like on my list of things to do. And now that you are talking so much about Jung, I'm like, wow, I really should look into that again. That could be a whole lot of fun to undertake and to go on that journey. But the thing with Carl Jung, it's interesting that you mentioned left and right brain, because I know that he became kind of like, he really wanted that academic validation, right? He really wanted to bring spiritual matters into academia. And he was very frustrated by the fact that he wasn't getting he wasn't getting that acceptance. And so he almost had to create like his own institutions. And these continue to this day, actually. The academic world has been kind of reluctant to embrace some of his ideas. His ideas around personality types is what really helped him to like come into like a more mass or mainstream understanding. But because he was somebody who wanted to study astrological phenomenon, mediumship, intuition, and things like that, things that sort of the academy kind of dismissed as, oh, that's just dreams, or that's just, pseudoscience. He really tried to create that bridge, and there were just people who wouldn't allow him to have that bridge. So there's these institutes, right? The Jungian institutes all over the world, really. It's like this network. And to this day, there still is this sense of Jungians really trying to find an in. And there are some places where, some universities where they have Jungian studies, for example, offered. I'm thinking about Pacifica in the United States. I'm thinking about the University of Essex. I actually know the director of that program. He's an incredible person. He's Canadian. And I remember meeting him as a student years ago out there. And so there are these people who have that spiritual sense and they want it to come into mainstream universities, but it can feel like an uphill battle even until now. But I know that that was something that did frustrate him in his lifetime, that, they just weren't allowing him an in, but he managed to create his own network. And he had so many people who loved his work so much that they were at the forefront of creating these institutions around the world that still offer training to Jungian analysts to this day.
Yeah, I have a degree in psychology, and I spent a little bit of time working in clinical psych, and I've ran into, whether it was professors or former colleagues of mine that were very left brain. Let's say they're very conservative. And I would mention, float across the words Carl Jung to them. And even though it feels like very foreign to them, very, I don't want to get ridiculed and all that, they all respect him for his intelligence. That cannot be denied, even if they're super this way and Carl Jung's that way. I really feel, though, that was Freud and Carl Jung were really close. And in my opinion, it's Freud that became a bit jealous. And he started kind of calling Jung like a kid and magical. And they had this rift. And so he kind of lost everything, like you said, and it had to go his own way, and still to today. But it's always so funny when I mention the name Carl Jung to whether the LCPCs, licensed clinical practitioners, or they're psychologists, psychiatrists, and I know they're maybe a little bit more on the logical left brain. They do have to admit to me, even though they may not believe into the magical side to it, that the guy was a genius. And it is possible, even though they're not really understanding of his philosophies and his concepts, that maybe they're wrong. They do admit, like if I corner them, they'll go, you know what? He was so much smarter than us. Maybe he was right, but it's just I don't understand it. Like a lot of them are like, it's so abstract to me, Mark, and I'm very left brain and it's very right brain. And then the other thing is I don't want to be laughed at because none of my other colleagues respect this. But what we do know, my expertise in psychology was schizophrenia and schizoaffective, and the most severe mental health disorders. That the human mind is so complex and mysterious that we are still in the dark ages of understanding it. That no matter how conservative they can be in their psychological approach, they all have to kind of say, I don't know, that guy, he knew something that we didn't. So I'll just whisper to you that maybe Carl Jung was right, even though I don't want anyone else to know about it, that maybe everything he's saying is true and maybe we kind of screwed up. Maybe a century from now, Nadiya, he's even going to be more mainstream than we see it now.
Wow, it's powerful to consider, that's for sure. And I think for your background and working with these people with, different mental capabilities or ways of perceiving the world and ways of understanding the world, it's like we can dismiss certain things, but I know that in ancient times, they were the shamans, right? They were believed to be able to connect with and communicate with spirits and to be in this place that was almost like an elevated spiritual state, which is why they perceived the world so differently and had these different motivations and different drives that allowed them to then perform ceremony, perform ritual, and bring that much more power to it. So it's interesting, your background on the clinical side, but then also you having that spiritual side, knowing that it isn't just about the clinical. It isn't necessarily just what it's being diagnosed at.
Absolutely. In ancient cultures, as you said, if you were a shaman or a medium, they would say it's kind of like your rite of passage to experience some of this. Maybe it's mental health, maybe it's unfriendly spirits, whatever the case may be. But that was almost like an indicator in your birth chart, like, hey, we have something here. Luckily for me, I don't live 100 years ago, because if you were found as a medium in some cultures, they would take you and put you in reclusion. So although sometimes when I'm in traffic here in Chicago, maybe that's not such a bad idea being in reclusion, but it was kind of like a rite of passage, like part of your destiny was to kind of understand that. I always say too, psychologists are a lot like angels and spirit guides. I know it sounds strange, but if you think about it, when you have a mental health issue, you have a crisis, whether that's financial, relationship related, it's the same, or passing, you're in crisis, right? So you're basically on the brink of death. And a psychologist comes in and tries to resurrect you, basically, right? To mentor you, to guide you, to coach you, to teach you. What is a spirit guide? What is an angel? When they say, I have a guardian angel that saved my life, same thing. Something was going to fall on a building from me and an angel swooped in. I swear, I know you guys don't believe me, but it was Archangel Michael, It's the same thing, just in a totally different way. Instead of it being, this white flash that pushes a car out of the way or you out of the way of the car. It's more of a verbal thing, but it's still a psychopomp. It's still a spirit guide. It's still an angel. But that's what psychologists do. They take you from one world, one state of being, and you are then guided into hopefully a better place, a better level of consciousness, which is the same thing as an angel and a spirit guide, or you could say shaman.
Wow. It's powerful and it's so intriguing to consider all these different ways in which mediumship has always been there in one form or another, no matter what they've called it. And it's so wonderful how much you know about it, how much you care about mediumship and nurturing that in other people. Once again, everybody, it is going to be Mark, who is back at Synchronicity University as part of the November 2024 speaker series. You've got a little time left to choose your tuition rate, as low as just $5 a class, to learn from Mark how to be a medium and all these other amazing teachers as well. You know, I adore you. I think you are just so insightful and wise, and just such a sincere person. You are working with Synchronicity University and bringing all these skills and talents and guiding people towards manifesting and tapping into their own medium within themselves as well. You know, that is so important to me, because I really feel that what we do is a skill, right? Like, as an astrologer, it's a skill. And I'm a little uncomfortable when people say things like, oh, you're so gifted or something like that, because I get those types of emails, right, where people say that. Ever since I first started on YouTube in particular, so many years ago, and I get these emails, and it always made me feel kind of uncomfortable, because to me, it's like, no, this is a skill and anybody can learn it. And I really felt that way, because I feel like we are equal. And so any type of sense of someone else being more elevated than another just has always made me so uncomfortable. And so that was a big part of like the whole mission of Synchronicity University, was so that people remember, and they're constantly reminded, like, no, these are skills. Anybody can learn it. Knowing it isn't necessarily about being special. It's just about putting in the time and putting in the practice, so that you're able to understand that this is a part of you as well. And I think that you teaching mediumship and the way that you teach it, it reminds people that, yeah, they are a medium as well, and they can be that by cultivating the skills. And I think that's a great equalizing principle that I just think helps fulfill the mission of Synchronicity University that much more.
You know, I would, by the way, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to teach. I also received the emails, I would hear it in readings, that people would say, well, I've never seen them. I've never seen a spirit, but they felt, they heard, they just knew. They have all these other senses that would indicate that they had some sort of connection to the spirit realm, but no one ever came along and told them, you do have that connection. And that broke my heart, especially at the beginning. I would go, what? You do have this connection. And they would say, but no one else has said it. I'm like, oh my gosh. I really created the YouTube channel because I wanted generations from now to have something. You know, they can say, I wasn't alone. And I wasn't left wondering, like, do I or don't I? I have, oh, this guy Mark was from 100 years ago. He made this thing, and maybe I'm not alone. Maybe I do have this, and he's saying it, and then that helps them and nudges them along the way. You having Synchronicity University does that too, where you see a plethora of astrologers that, hey, we're not alone, and people use astrology for different reasons, but it absolutely, you'll be able to discover more about yourself from both astrology and mediumship. But yeah, we have the same kind of mission statements and the same type of purposes. We want people to realize you have this too, and you're not alone.
Yeah, it's a powerful thing to facilitate that in people, that's for sure. And I love that you do that, and I love being a part of that as well. So thank you again, Mark, for being here for this time with you. And remember, guys, synchronicityuniversity.com. You can learn more and sign up to Mark's talk. And again, thank you, Mark, and thank you, everybody out there, for watching. Until we connect again, take care. Bye.